You're listening to Never Heard of It, a Night Shift Radio production.
Why don't we go halves?
We'll go halvesies on this one.
Yeah.
We'll go Dutch on this one.
We'll go Dutch on the ghost.
We'll go Dutch on the ghost. All right, good. I like that. That's good. That's very modern of us.
Yeah. I had this past week off.
Yeah.
I'm changing up jobs, so I had a week in between to kind of just relax. And because we're in the spooky season, I had every intent of watching The Haunting of Bly Manor.
Yeah.
Which is the kind of like spin-off series from the Haunting of Hill House, which was very good, very scary. But when I sat down to watch that on Monday, I learned that it wasn't actually out until Friday. And so I did just rewatch The Haunting of Hill House. And it was fun to watch it a second time and like experience less of just the pure adrenaline of being scared and like pay attention more to just like the just creeping sense of dread that they give by all like the little Easter egg stuff that you see in the background, all the hidden ghosts and whatnot. And like it's fucking it's really brilliantly done.
I think so. Haunting of Hill House. Yeah, I watched Haunting of Hill House. I have not watched Bly Manor yet. Yeah, that was, I think, one of the things that I remember everybody raving about the show when it first came out. And I was like, meh. And I watched one episode and I was like, okay, wait, what was that? Wait, why is nobody talking about that? Why aren't you talking? There was a thing, there was a face. Why is nobody talking about this face? What the fuck? And I'm like 4 episodes in and I'm like, well, surely they'll talk about the face eventually. And I was like, because I've seen like 5 more, nothing. No. And I'm like, this show is amazing. Yeah. It's amazing because that's the left unsaid part is the most scary part.
It's just like, it's an ambience too, because like more often than not, you're probably not actually seeing them, but like something in your brain is registering that there is something wrong with this setting.
You're triggering.
It just makes it that much creepier.
Yeah.
I did start Bly Manor finally on Friday. I got about 3 episodes in. Very good, very different. Less about the haunting itself and more a little bit of like a mystery tale.
Okay.
And I think I've solved the mystery already.
3 episodes in?
Yeah.
You sleuth.
So we'll see. We'll see. Few returning cast members from Hill House. Carla Gugino's back. Brilliant actor.
Yeah.
She's the narrator, which I think is an interesting use of her.
Yeah.
And then the actors who played Luke and Nell are back.
Are both back. That's nice. And then newcomer Raul Kahuli, I think is his name. Yeah. But he was most recently in iZombie. Oh, yeah. And he was amazing in iZombie. That was a great show.
Yeah. I mean, so far, brilliantly cast.
Yeah.
Everyone. Actually, I'm drawing a blank at his name, but the younger version of Hugh Crane, the father, is also in this movie or in this series as well.
Cool. Yeah. Nigel Crane. You're talking about Frasier now, right? No. We're segueing into Frasier. Is that?
No. You caught me off guard because I'm like, what are you talking about? Nigel Crane. Like,
Nigel?
I said his name is Hugh. Like, where did you get Nigel?
Right? Because it was Frasier Crane, right? That was his name. I'm not making that up, am I? I'm probably making that up.
You are correct.
All right.
They were the Cranes, but I think they would just R-A-N-E, whereas in this series it's R-A-I-N.
Gotcha.
I think. I could be wrong on that.
Yeah, I'm not really sure.
Frasier was a much scarier show.
Yeah. And to be honest, I still don't know what to do with the tossed salad and scrambled eggs. They're coming again. And with that, hello and welcome to the Never Heard of It podcast. I'm your host, Michael Fight.
And I am Caleb Pay the Coy.
I mean, yeah, it's the obvious one. It's good. It fits.
And if you'd like to pay the Coy, you can hit us up on Cash App at #Night Shift Radio.
Get him with the 1-2 right there.
While we're on the subject,
you can also do so by checking out our brand new merch.
That's true.
Yeah. We've got really awesome brand new merch. Caleb's dog Penelope has a wonderful Nahoit pet hoodie,
Oh, where
which
she
is
is right now.
amazing.
Yes, it's adorable. And like the like extra small or whatever, the smallest size that they make is actually the right size for her. She's 5 pounds and like nothing is the right size for her, and it fits
Yeah.
perfectly.
No, I also have a 5-pound dog, so that is noted. I will be buying the extra small as well. That'll fit her
adorable.
perfectly. Yeah. Oh man, I'm so excited. Yeah, I have a t-shirt and a hoodie coming. I have a Night Shift Radio hoodie and then a Nahoit t-shirt. Two Night Shift Radio hoodies and then a Nahoit t-shirt.
Yeah,
Hopefully coming soon.
Ellen got a Left of the Dial T-shirt.
I saw that.
Pink, and I
Mhm.
have a Night Shift Radio hoodie coming. It's not here yet, but
Yeah.
it's actually probably for the best because right now it's still getting up into the 80s during the day. So
Yeah, it was 80
and
degrees here yesterday.
I need a couple more days before I need a new hoodie.
Yeah, right. I mean, in all fairness, I don't need another hoodie. I'm like at least 15. Okay, that's true. I do need another hoodie. I always need another hoodie. I have a Storyteller series hoodie, actually. It's wonderful. It's
saw that.
spectacular. Yeah, yeah.
Looks
Which is
excellent
pretty
on you.
fantastic. Yeah. So we're continuing on with Caleb's October picks of his Spooktober Spooktober picks, and he went with a good old classic Nick Cage. You can't go wrong with Nick Cage.
You really can't. I mean, I'm setting out to prove that that is the case, and so far he hasn't let me down.
He does his job well.
And of course, we're talking about the was it 2015?
2015.
Yeah, 2015 film Pay the Ghost. And
it's a movie.
It's all right. So, quick content warning. There's a little bit of blood from unintentional self-harm. There is some jump scares, some kind of ghosty stuff. And of course, a good chunk of the film takes place in a Halloween carnival. So there's freaky masks, things like clowns and whatnot. So if those bother you, be aware. But that's really about it.
That's really, yeah, there's really about it. And we were both able to find this movie on Tubi TV streaming for free.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's easy peasy. Yeah, you know what's crazy about, I mean, so we've talked about Nick Cage before, but Nick Cage has a couple of crazy films coming up that I feel like we have to talk about.
Oh my god.
So one is Jiu-Jitsu, which is I think either out or coming out soon, but Jiu-Jitsu is basically a jiu-jitsu studio must fight an alien invasion.
Yes.
And Nick Cage is like the jiu-jitsu master guy, because of course he is. But that movie actually stars, like, it actually has a pretty good like action cast. So like it has Frank Grillo in it. It has Tony Jaa, it has Rick Yoon, like Juju Chan. Like it's a pretty damn good, like there's some cool action people in it. Like Tony Jaa is awesome. Rick Yoon is awesome. Rick Yoon is Johnny Tran in Fast and Furious. He was in Die Another Day. He was in the movie Ninja Assassin. He was in Alita Battle Angel. He was in the show Marco Polo, which actually was super underrated. And he was Zen Yi in The Man with the Iron Fist, which is also a fucking dope movie. Juju Chan's been in a bunch of things. She was in Wu Assassins. She was in Sword of Destiny, the Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, sequel. What else has she been in? But she's been in some other good things. But like, I don't know, man. And then Tony Jaa from what the shit was that name? Ong Bak, the Ong Bak series. So that's a pretty cool. And that movie comes out like soon. I think when is the release date? That comes out in November, the end of November. But then we can't not talk about an upcoming film from Nick Cage called The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, in which Nick Cage plays.
So hoping this is where you were going.
Yeah. Caleb, would you care to expand on The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent?
Yes. A cash-strapped Nicolas Cage agrees to make a paid appearance at a billionaire superfan's birthday party. It's me. I'm the superfan. But is really an informant for the CIA, since the billionaire fan is a drug kingpin and gets cast in a Tarantino movie. What's clear from that statement is if
Who is getting cast?
is Nicolas Cage really an informant and gets cast in a Tarantino movie, or is the billionaire fan a drug kingpin who was cast?
Who was cast? Who was accidentally cast in a Tarantino film? Yeah. As you can hear probably in the background, my dog is like very excited about that. She's like, yes, go on. Yes. She was just absolutely.
Yes.
She has, hang on, I'll show you. So she doesn't have a Nahoit hoodie, but she does in fact have her little spooky
Oh, look at that.
Bones hoodie.
That's
So hello,
cute.
YouTube. Oh, I see Penelope in the background with her little sweater. Do you see Penelope in the background with her sweater? Hello,
I'm gonna
this
stand off to the side and see if she settles on. Usually she lays on that pillow
on the arm. Yeah.
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 Nice
So this
lady.
new podcast is us just showing off. It's men and their tiny dogs. That's the name of this show now. Hi.
That's my favorite show.
It's the best show. Honestly, it's a better YouTube channel than what we've got. Hey, by the way, watch us on YouTube.
That's true. You can do that.
Yeah, it's a thing, and you could totally subscribe, so that way we can get a custom thing, and we're not just youtube.com/blah blah 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 blah. We could be youtube.com/never heard of it.
I wonder if anyone has youtube.com/blah blah 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 blah.
You know they do, but maybe not as many blahs. But yeah,
Like
so the
7.
unbearable weight of massive talent. Oof,
That's such a great name.
it is such a great name.
Oh my god.
And you mentioned that you saw Color Out of Space. You said it was
Yes.
good. Yeah.
Yes.
Cool.
I own it, but it's also available on Shudder, which we talked about recently with Scare Me.
Yeah.
And if you haven't checked that out, sign yourself up for a free trial of Shudder and watch Scare Me and Color Out of Space.
Yes, totally.
Those are my recommendations.
The good ones. So Pay the Ghost I remember this movie coming out in theaters. It's a very interesting movie.
You do?
I do remember this coming out. I
Interesting.
remember seeing like the trailers for it, and hearing about it, but I mean, obviously I didn't see it, obviously, and I had no interest then, but now in watching it, it's not a bad movie.
No.
With some caveats.
So I think
Caveat emptor.
the first thing that we need to do is talk about ghost movies in general.
Sure.
Because that's in a nutshell what this movie is. The name is reasonably accurate to that extent. And ghost movies tend to suffer from kind of two struggles. You know, within the same hour and a half to 2 hour time frame, they have to try to shoehorn in both a compelling haunting story, a reason why the cast is scared of a thing, but also typically an origin of the haunting, whether that be a historical background or whether that be a demonic summoning or something like that. They have to get both of those elements correct, while also creating the appropriate sense of dread and balancing jump scares with like actual, like, you know, mind fuckery and whatnot to get a good spooky story. And that's really hard to do. Not many pull it off.
I mean, most of the time with movies like this, you're lucky if you even get one good.
Yeah.
Like either the person backstory or the ghost backstory. You're lucky if one of them is decent.
Yeah. This does an okay job at that. It is not, it doesn't nail it.
Yeah, by any means.
And in fact, it even starts out with a New York, 1679. So we get a brief historical exposition. It's actually just a very, very short scene that sets us up for like, okay, there is a historical backstory to this haunting, but it doesn't give us any really of any real details. We see children in kind of like, you know, crude masks hiding in a basement, and they hear a struggle up in the house as something is happening to their mother. And then one of them cries out for their mom and they get discovered. That's all we know.
Yeah.
That's our setup.
Which, I mean, is an interesting tease, but honestly, like the fact that we don't go back to that story until way, way later makes it like feel so out of place. Because like you don't even like get hinted into that story until like the last quarter of the movie. Like it is the end of the movie when they're like, let's do a historical background. And then I was like, oh, we're
Yeah.
finally going to talk about this fucking 40-second scene. Okay. Like
Yeah.
it was really weird.
And we're gonna spoil this one, by the way.
Yeah.
So sorry. But yeah, so like, it literally is like, so that's the first couple of minutes. This is roughly an hour and a half runtime, a little bit shorter, minus the credits and whatnot. So we'll say hour 20, hour 25, whatever.
Yeah.
Jump all the way to like 15 minutes remaining, and they start just shoehorning in the backstory and the exposition and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I almost feel like this is like, how every now and then you have a story that kind of jumps back and forth between the backstory and the present day,
Mhm.
and fills you in the gaps along the way as it's setting the tone. I feel
Yeah.
like this movie could have really done with something like that. Like, give us a little bit more to go on of like like what this story is about, like what this like crying woman ghost is, to especially to differentiate from, I guess, somewhat more recent within the last couple of years, La Llorona, which is
Right.
also a crying woman ghost.
Yeah, the weird thing is like I mean at least to my recollection, they don't even bring up like Charlie, the young kid who talks about there's like a thing outside my window. As soon
Mm-hmm.
as we cut after that scene of the 1689, it immediately cuts to our main characters, Charlie, the young boy, who gets up to go into his mother's room, who is played by Sarah Wayne Callies.
Yeah, she
And
was Lori from The Walking Dead.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I thought I recognized her face. But he goes in there, he's like, there's something outside my window. And I don't think Charlie, of the multiple times that he brings it up, because it's very early that the big incident happens. It's very early in the film. Um, he never actually says like the crying woman. He just says there's a thing outside my window, like there's a monster outside my window or something, or like there's something creepy outside my window. And we see a picture of it, but it's not,
Yeah.
it's just hooded figure.
Well, he even says like, I didn't really get a good look at it. I just saw this shadow. This is what I saw. Like, he comes home from art class and he's drawing on his iPad, which actually I think is kind of a neat little touch. Because children's drawings are a fairly common prop in this type
Yeah,
of movies whenever there's a
especially
child
kids.
involved with a haunting, and they'll usually draw their family, and then like you see like there's something creepy in the house behind them, or it's just like it's a very dark tone or something like that. But this is just like on his iPad, it's just a drawing of like a creepy kind of robed shadow with like lines around it, and I thought that was a really interesting use of uh, something you might actually start to see in some kids' schools now, and you doing digital artwork. I don't know if that's the case or not, but I know it's very possible,
Yeah.
from the digital artwork that I've seen come from adults artists. So
Adult scribbles as well. Like, this is the thing I saw out my window. And it's just,
like our D&D teammate Peter, like he's
oh yeah.
doodling the whole time, and like it's really cool. Or my brother Joshua will just spend his whole day at work doodling on the iPad, showing people what can be done. It's fucking neat.
Doodling. Yeah, it is really cool. It is very fun.
He does more
Um,
than that. That makes it sound like he just fucks around all day. He's somewhat more responsible than that.
Somewhat. We both worked with Josh. Somewhat. Josh is absolute staple of that story. Yeah, and so the thing about that, is, I mean, there's a lot of this movie that is very like, I don't know, what's the normal thing that happens in these sort of movies? Okay, do that. But there is a lot too that I feel like there is a cool story there. So as you mentioned, so the general idea, we'll kind of blow it out in the beginning, is Nick Cage is a working on tenured professor, and he teaches history.
It seems like maybe more like literature, because in the first scene that we see him teaching, he's reading from and how does he pronounce it? He pronounce it Goethe? I
I
think
think so. Yeah.
Goethe. I've I've seen the name before, but never heard it pronounced, so that took me out by surprise. He's describing this kind of horror story, legend, tale, whatever, and he's doing his dramatic reading, and the kids are enthralled and they're laughing and whatnot, and he sends them away with all his Nicolas Cage charisma, and they fucking love him.
Right.
And it's kind of a neat setup. Like, I can see Nicolas Cage like hamming it up in a class like that and people appreciating that. So it seems more like possibly history, but probably more like a literature bent.
Yeah.
Because later on when we see him after he's gotten tenure, but after his life is going to fall into shit, he's just kind of dry. Like, and this is what Sleepy Hollow is about.
Right.
And in the name, it tells us that it's going to be scary.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Which also, I need to point out that so he's a college level professor, and there was a school bell at the end of his class. There's no school bells in college. Like, a school bell rang at the end of his class. Like, that's not a thing.
I dismiss you, not the bell.
I just you stay in your seat.
Fucking hated that shit.
Bullshit. Yeah. That was dumb.
Are you going to explain to our next teacher why you're late? Why we're late? Because
Right.
of your ego?
Right. I was a teacher. I never did that shit. I was always like, "Bell's done. Okay, bye. Get out of my classroom, please." Before I vomit. I was a terrible teacher. So the story is Nick Cage, workaholic, working really hard to get tenure at his college. Wife is, she works, but she's at home with the kid most often. They do have some form of live-in worker person. I would assume something to the effect of nanny, but she was also cooking.
Seems
So I'm
more
not
like
really-
housekeepers or
Yeah, something
like
to
kind
that
of
effect. Because she didn't really
general-
like deal with the kid. She just did like
Yeah.
the around the house work, it seemed.
Yeah.
So they it's finally like it's the big day, and he gets his letter, and he's finally a tenured professor, and this is a huge deal. He's been working for years for this. And so he comes home early, and he's like, I don't have to be late anymore. And he was like, I'm gonna take my son out trick-or-treating, as he's already the wife was already kind of doing that.
But of course, it's like he's made this promise to his son that they'll carve the pumpkin before they go trick or treating, and he'll definitely be there this time. There's a little bit of that trope, like I promise I'll be here this time, because the promises from a father to son is a special thing. I wouldn't know.
I mean, I was raised by lesbians, so neither would I.
But he gets out, he's ready to leave, and then he gets his letter, and like his initial like reaction looks like he didn't get the tenure. I was like, oh
Yeah.
fuck, this is gonna be a thing. But then he goes storming into like, I don't know, like his version of academic advisor, his colleague Hannah, into her office. And he's like, did you see this? And he hands her the letter, and we see it's a congratulations. Well, and she's like, oh, you got it. And he's like, yeah, thank you for recommending me. So he does get the tenure. So he's all set to go home, and they're gonna have a great night as a family and celebrate. Kristen, she's gonna want to celebrate, if you know what I mean.
You know what I mean?
I'm not making innuendos. She actually does that.
Right.
But of course, he can't get a cab to save his life, and so he has to walk home from wherever this university is to their brownstone in Lower Manhattan. Which, side note, if I could afford a brownstone row house in New York City, I'd live there. Those houses are fucking gorgeous.
Yeah, right? Like, yeah. But yeah, so he finally gets, to the time, like he catches them in the midst of trick-or-treating. And, she was like, well, we've been trick-or-treating this whole time, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, well, why don't I just take him off to see this Halloween fair? It's like this Diagon Alley looking motherfucking place. And so off they go, him and Charlie, they go off to their little fair and their little parade, and they're hanging out, and Charlie's recording it with a camcorder.
Where did that come from?
Yeah, I'm not really sure, but he just has it, I guess. I don't know.
Because they didn't have it out while they were trick-or-treating, and they didn't go into the house before turning right around and walking over to this carnival.
I would assume the assumption is that Michael, Nick Cage, his character, just had it with him. Maybe it was in his bag. Maybe he brought it in the intent of like, hey, I'm going to be home in time to do this thing. I don't know.
I don't buy it.
It's irrelevant. I mean, if that's the I don't buy it part of this film for you,
So here's the thing, and I'm going to complain about this later. I can put aside my I don't buy it that they just happen to have the camera because the kid's filming, and so of course, as we know that something bad is going to happen in this camera or in this carnival, the camera is going to pick that up, right? I can excuse that because okay, it's an important piece to the plot, but we'll revisit later why they dropped the ball there.
They totally do. Anyway,
Go on.
so they get to the fair and finally they go up to one of the little food trucks. I think it was an ice cream stand.
Yeah.
And he was carrying Charlie around on his shoulders. He puts him down, holding his hand. He looks up to the ice cream guy, looks back down. Charlie is gone. So now we have our disappearance. Now the thing is we never really got any foreshadowing that this was going to happen. Even in the walk, like there was never like did you see that? It was just like boom, it just happens.
So as they're walking around and Charlie is filming from on top of Mike's shoulders, he's capturing all of the sights and the sounds and the wonders of the carnival, all the spooky costumes and whatnot. And he turns and points the camera down an alley, and he sees not just as a shadow, but pretty clearly this freaky looking ghost of a like screaming woman. And then he turns away for a second and then looks back and she's gone. So he sees it and he kind of reacts, and Michael picks up on that. And he asks if Charlie's okay, and Charlie doesn't say anything. So that's when he puts him down and they walk holding hands. And he asks, do you want to get ice cream? While they're at the ice cream stand, Charlie is still looking around, and he sees for the second time that night vultures in Lower Manhattan, because that's just the thing.
And nobody was like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, nobody else is freaked out by that at all. And I feel like the first time he sees it when they're out, like, and it's like broad daylight, and it flies away. It's gone from out of view entirely. And he says to his mom, like, "Mommy, did you see the bird?" Like, be more specific. You're in New York.
You're in New York. There's 5,000 pigeons in an immediate radius to us.
Oh, why did the bird watcher call the police?
Why?
To report a murder. Anyway, we've been seeing lots of crows around my house lately.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Charlie's looking around. He sees the vultures again, and then we get this moment where he kind of like tugs on his dad's hand to get his attention, and Mike looks down, and Charlie says, "Dad, can we pay the ghost?" And like a totally like creepy, like kind of uncharacteristic, like really blank expression sort of thing. And his dad's like, "What?" And then turns back to like pay the, for the ice cream, and then turns back immediately to hand Charlie the ice cream cone, and Charlie is gone, just fucking gone.
Just gone.
And so of course he's doing what you would expect. He's running around this carnival screaming for his child's name. He sees another kid dressed as a pirate and like grabs him by the shoulder, and the other's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And he doesn't say like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I lost my son who's also wearing a pirate costume." He just like turns away, like, "All right, dude, you're being kind of creepy." Maybe.
I mean, this thing always bothers me when this exact scenario happens in movies where the kid goes missing, is people run around and they're like screaming the kid's name, kid, oh, what is happening, blah, instead of being like, "Hi, have you seen my kid? They look like this." They never really stop. And he does for a second. He's like, "Charlie, have you seen my son? Have you seen my son?" But like
he goes back to the ice cream stand and asks the guy there, like, my son was right next to me and now he's gone. Did you see him? And he's like, "No." What bothered me about this is that he's running around like screaming his child's name and clearly frantic, and like no one stops to like ask like, what's wrong, like can we help, like is someone missing?
Yeah.
I mean, yes, this is New York, but like in a situation like that, I feel like somebody would be.
Yeah, but I mean, like,
and then like,
I agree, because this isn't just some random street. This is like a kid's Halloween fair. So like this is the scenario in which that would be more likely for someone to be like, "Oh my God, yes, let me help you find your kid." Like,
yeah, there's a bunch of families here, and like, there's partiers, there's drunken revelers and whatnot, revelers, revelries, but
rebel scum.
It really shrunken rebels. But yeah, it really is a family-oriented thing. And of course, he like pulls aside a beat cop who's like, sir, what's wrong? Or, you got to calm down, buddy. And he's like, my son is missing. Like, can you help me? He's like, whoa, buddy, calm down here. Like, we don't do that kind of stuff around here.
Hey, what are you trying to do? Bust my chops here? Like, my kid's missing. Hey, buddy.
Hey, I'm walking here.
I'm walking here. What are you doing?
And instead of like making the slightest effort to like help or like, look around, ask around, anything like that, the cop's answer is, well, do you live around here? Maybe he just went home. So he just like while standing there at the ice cream stand waiting for his ice cream that his dad promised him less than 30 seconds ago, he's just like, fuck this.
Fuck off. And just walks over, right? Boring. Peace out, bitches. It just goes home. You're like, what the
But also in the like literally seconds that it takes from him to say the creepy thing, goes back, pays for the ice cream, gets the cone and turns back, just like completely gone and like nowhere in sight. Like, yes, there's a lot of people, but like he would have had to like fucking run, like,
right,
shoving people aside. Like he would have caused a commotion getting away quickly enough.
And he's also a fucking 7-year-old kid. Like, he ain't exactly like Roadrunner over here, like we're talking top speed, like 2 miles an hour max. Like, you're gonna outrun this kid. So yeah, I don't know. But yeah, so here's our big incident. This is the big kickoff of the film, and this is very early in the movie. Like, this is a good 20 minutes into the movie. This is like the big thing. So we know now that the point of the movie is going to be, the finding of the kid, the discovery of the ghosts, and all that kind of stuff. So before we jump into that, first off, just want to say, hey, if you haven't subscribed yet, or followed, or whatever it is that your podcatcher of choice does, please do so. It's super duper helpful. And if you are in a podcatcher app like Apple iTunes, or like Stitcher or something like that allows you to leave ratings and reviews, do that. It's super duper helpful for us if you want. I mean, it'd be cool. But it's very helpful for us and we super duper appreciate it. We'll give you a shout out on the show if we see your rating or review come up. We would love that. Yeah. We mentioned earlier we have a website for merchandise. Caleb, what's that website?
Yeah, well, you can navigate directly to that by visiting nsrad.io/merch. You see, because it's like radio. Night Shift Radio,
because we're Night Shift Radio
/merch. But of course, you can also get there from our Night Shift Radio website, which is nightshiftradio.com. You can check out our store there. You can check out our shows page where you can see all of the shows that we have available on the Night Shift Radio network. Our blog, our the print edition for the Storyteller series, a bunch of great content on there that we're keeping updated, as often as we can to keep y'all interested. So
yeah. That's pretty fantastic. And of course, we're on social media at the Nahoit podcast on both Instagram and Twitter. That's the NHOIT podcast. Definitely check us out there. You can tweet at us trailers or anything. We just had one sent to us not that long ago. Someone recommended a movie, a trailer that just came out that they said is very in our line. And it's what is it? The Wolf of Snow Hollow.
Oh, yes.
That was one that just got sent to us by someone to check out. So definitely do that. We would love to see any of the movies. Send us any suggestions. And of course, as Caleb mentioned, we actually ourselves have a website. If outside of Night Shift Radio, you can just go to thenahoit.com. And on there is a submission form where you guys can submit and be like, hey, it'd be really cool if you watched this movie and maybe we'll watch it. I mean, we just did a whole month last month of user requests, and we are down to do that again.
And we will.
As the kids say, we are down to clown. So nobody really says that anymore, I don't think, but
I don't know that anybody ever did.
I just did. That's all you need to know.
Okay, fair.
All right, we're going to go to a commercial break. We will be right back.
You're listening to a Night Shift Radio production. Night Shift Radio is a modern media company bringing you shows that entertain, inform, and most importantly, provide an escape. Never Heard of It dives into the world of bad, obscure, and sometimes just weird movies. Follow along with the crew of Set Condition 1 as they experience the 2004 sci-fi hit Battlestar Galactica, one episode at a time. Each week on Left of the Dial, we explore a new record or revisit an old favorite. We bring in guests to talk about their own music and the state of the industry. The Superpod Hero Cast, guys with beers talking about movies with capes. They draw a random comic-inspired movie from Thor's helmet and offer thorough, insightful, and humorous commentary. And once a month, tune into the Storyteller series and get lost in the magic of a good old-fashioned radio drama. Learn more about these fine shows at nightshiftradio.com and subscribe on your favorite platform.
Hello and welcome back. Did you remember to pay the ghost?
Oh, I think I might have forgotten the ghost bill this month.
Oh God, I hope our ghost doesn't get shut off.
I meant to put it on auto pay and I totally forgot.
I forgot. See, what I did was I put the check for the zombie in the ghost one and the one for the ghost in the zombie one. That buys me an extra month, bitches.
I signed up for the free trial of Ghost and
forgot to turn it off.
I forgot to turn it off, and they hit me with the auto renew.
That happened to me with Apple TV Plus, and almost happened to me with Quibi. But I remembered to turn that off because I was like, yo, I'll totally sign up for Quibi. And then 3 months later, I was like, I have literally never opened this app once. In fact, I opened the app to turn off my auto subscription, and my phone was like, hey, do you want to re-download this app? We deleted it because you never used it. I'm like, cool. All right. So I was like, woof, definitely don't need that then.
I saw a headline a while back that they saw just a massive drop off at the 90-day mark once those trials ran out.
Yeah, and then they were trying to sell.
No fucking joke. Like, there's only so far that you can take the short clip, bite-sized media trend before it's just not interesting anymore. And movies and TV to me, that's you've crossed the line.
I feel like they overestimated how often people watch entire TV shows on their phones.
There's that as well.
Yeah.
Although, I don't know. I feel like it seems like that's a thing, but I also never really witness it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't ever really hear people be like, oh yeah, I watched that on my phone, on my commute or anything like that. I know people watch shit on their computers all the time. I have Apple TVs and smart TVs and stuff like that. So I don't really watch things on my computer ever. Yeah. But I know that's a thing. I mean, you do it. You watch shows on your computer sometimes.
Yeah, I watch movies on either my laptop or more likely my tablet. If it's something for this podcast that I know Ellen's going to have no interest in or shouldn't be subjected to. Or last week when I was watching The Hauntings of Hill House and Bly Manor, I watched on my tablet with headphones in because shit was working and I was not, and I wanted to be able to really hear and be immersed in it without being loud enough for the people she was talking to hear, or me being taken out of it by hearing her conversations and whatnot. So I do some media consumption that way, but it's still in larger screen format. I don't on my phone really at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And nor do I really have any interest. I think the last time I did any television or movie consumption on my phone was years ago when I would watch Ghost Adventures while I was on the treadmill at the gym.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. That's great. I don't watch anything on my phone aside from social media type things or movie trailers. I'll watch a movie trailer on my phone, but I won't watch full on content. After about 10 minutes, I'm I don't want my phone in my hand anymore. I'm done.
Even the occasional YouTube video that someone sends me, I'll open it to see what it was and really have a hard conversation with myself of if it actually feels worth holding my phone horizontally long enough to watch this and appreciate it. And
Right.
let's be honest, the answer more often than not is no.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. Like more often than not, especially if it's a movie trailer, I'll like watch the first couple of like seconds of it, and then I'll immediately pull it up like on my computer or on my TV to be like, I want to
Mhm.
watch this big, and I want to, whatevs. But anyways, Pay the Ghost. So at this point, uh Nick Cage comes home. The wife is, he was like, oh my god, our son is missing. They filed their police report, the whole spiel. The So Nick Cage's character's name is Mike, the wife's name is Kristen. And and she's like, all you had to do was watch him. Like, what is going on? Like, she completely places the blame on Mike, which is, I mean, understandable, not in the sense that it's his fault, but understandable in the sense of like, because of everything that's going on, he's been a very absent father because he's been a workaholic, and this is the first time he ever goes off and does it. It's like, the husband, or let's say the spouse, to be more gender neutral, the spouse that never helps around the house, and then they do one task and completely fuck it up, and they're like, well, this is why I don't do it, like it's kind of like, in her mind, that's what's happened, but in his, obviously it's not his fault at all.
It bothers me a little bit because she's like, "Oh, you had to take him to that stupid carnival,"
Right.
and like the kid was begging to go, and
Right.
like she was like, "No, it's too late," and then he shows up, and like he's like I'm sorry I'm late, but like I got the 10 year, like we can celebrate, and he's like, let me just take him just for a few minutes, like we'll just have some fun, and she agrees, and like it wasn't like he came home and like no one else had any interest in going, and he just like started insisting on going to this carnival. Like it wasn't like it was his idea
Yeah.
that dragged him off to. And it wasn't like he wasn't at all neglectful. Like I can understand the like the visceral just like shock and loss and whatnot, but like placing it all on him to the point where like she ends up like presumably kicking him out of the house. Like next time we see him a year later, he's living in this tiny little studio apartment, where it becomes a true Nicolas Cage movie, because we see he's got an entire wall dedicated to like newspaper clippings and mugshots and push pins with string connecting them, and he's got his whole conspiracy web going, and it's fucking
Yeah.
crazy, and I love it.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, so a year later, Nick Cage obviously has been kicked out of the house, living on his own. He's very obsessed with this. This is the part where, Caleb had mentioned earlier about the oh, look at, there's the Nahoit hoodie on the little Penelope. But we mentioned where his fervor is gone in teaching the students, because now he's just obsessed with finding the person who has taken his son. And even we get the moment of like I know he's still alive. Like you can't tell me otherwise. I don't know why I slipped into a different accent, but yeah. My Nick Cage is off today.
It's a little bit, yeah. I mean, nobody does confused face like Nicolas Cage, though.
Right.
But yeah, so it's basically a couple days shy of the anniversary. Like it's just before Halloween the year later, and he starts thinking like he sees Charlie in different places. He starts thinking like he hears his voice like calling, "Daddy, like come help me,"
Right.
and whatnot, and so he gets this sense of like I feel like he's reaching out to me. He's trying to like draw me to him, which like he doesn't really give the sense until like much later that this is a new thing, like that this just started happening. He's kind of implying that it's been happening all along, which
For the past year. Yeah.
we learn is not the case at all. But to the point where like he's walking around the city after work, and he sees a bus pass by, and he sees Charlie in one of the windows still wearing the cowboy costume and the like eye
The
patch
pirate.
makeup.
Yeah.
Pirate costume, because Mike was a cowboy.
Right.
He's still wearing the pirate costume with the eye patch makeup and whatnot, which had his son actually been abducted, like it would be kind of weird that he still has that makeup and costume on a year later.
1 year later, right? Like that didn't in his mind be like, oh wait, That's probably not legit, because also my son looks exactly the same. Like my kid looks completely different today. She's 8, so my kid looks completely different now than she did 1 year ago. Like she's
Mhm.
grown a lot, like she's bigger, like
And it's
you know.
the right age range too, because Charlie is like 7, 8, somewhere around in there. Like,
Yeah.
and we learn like he's done some investigation and he finds like other kids that have gone missing, uh, at like different times of the year. Most of them get found, but like other kids go missing at Halloween, and most of them aren't found. And like we see, um, their age range is all about the same within like a couple years of each other. That feels significant.
Yeah.
But he chases the bus to somewhere near the Brooklyn Bridge, but it's hard to tell. Like, presumably, it's still the Manhattan side of the bridge, because it still seems like it's very close to their home, which I think is
Yeah.
on Grand Island. But he chases it to a warehouse, and he sees the words "Pay the Ghost" graffitied on the warehouse, and so he does what any sane person would do and walks right into this abandoned, decrepit warehouse with the creepy graffiti on it.
Right. I mean,
and
which
starts,
which in fairness, in New York City, you've got a really good chance of it either being like a drug place or like an underground party. Like
or
it's
like
kind of, or I mean, those, I guess, are kind of the same, but
a pop-up restaurant.
a pop-up restaurant, you walk in and be like, yo, you selling Yeezys here? What is is that a new Yeezy?
Sir, you are underdressed.
Right.
For our fine dining pop-up exclusive,
I'm
invite
sorry.
only.
This is baggy sweatshirts only. Sorry.
And he wanders deep into this warehouse, which feels like it's significantly larger on the inside than it is on the outside.
It also seems
And
very like underground tunnely too.
yeah.
Yeah.
And he finds a homeless encampment, people like burning trash in barrels to keep warm and whatnot. And he's stumbling around asking, "What does pay the ghost mean? What does it mean? What does it all mean? Whoa, my son, have you seen my son?"
It's the burning. This is a crossover movie, a meta crossover movie. The burning trash can is the money that he stole from.
Yes.
From what was the name of that movie?
Stolen.
Stolen. That's right. Yeah.
Where he lost his other kid. Nick Cage can't hang on to kids.
Yeah. Don't let Nick Cage have a kid, guys. Well, and in all fairness, in Raising Arizona, he stole a kid. So it's really just karma from that. Every movie is just karma from him stealing a kid. They're gonna steal a kid from him in every movie after.
Don't trust your kids with Nick Cage.
Face Off, that happens in Face Off too. His kid gets stolen as well, doesn't it?
But then he meets a blind man with dreadlocks, and he's played by what was his name again? Stephen McHattie, I think. Yeah, Stephen McHattie, who we saw in the worst fucking movie ever. He was John Tollerman in Wolves.
Oh God, that's
I remember that.
There we go.
Yeah, he's been in a bunch of stuff that was some marginally better, some significantly better, but his career will forever be tainted by the worst movie ever made.
By the worst. Oh, it's just fucking terrible. Yeah, but he was also, as we mentioned, Hollis Mason in Watchmen.
Wait, which was worse? Was Weed Wolf worse?
Oh, Weed Wolf was really fucking bad.
Okay, yeah, that's right. Weed Wolf was the worst movie.
Yeah,
ever made.
Weed Wolf was
just terrible.
Bad. It was just terrible, but Weed Wolf was really fucking bad. Oh God.
But anyway, the blind man lights a torch and leads Mike down a hallway, which, okay, presumably suspension of disbelief. The torch is for Mike's benefit, but like, why a blind man thinks to grab a torch, I don't know.
Also, later we find out he also carries around a flashlight. Like, motherfucker, why didn't you use the flashlight the first time around? Are you carrying around a fucking torch?
He gives the flashlight to Mike later on, saying like, "You'll need this more than I do." Like, why did you need it at all?
Well, and more specifically, Mike pays him with a fucking watch. What the fuck is a blind man gonna do with a watch?
I mean, he might sell it.
I guess he could sell it, but like,
presumably he is unhoused and could use the money.
But I mean, like, what the fuck? I mean, maybe, I guess, but I mean, like, how much do watches really cost nowadays?
He pays. I might be confusing. No, okay, we'll come back to what I was about to say anyway. But yeah, like he pays the blind man later with his watch in a scenario where like he's in a race against time, like he has to do a thing before midnight, and he gives up his watch at the moment when he most needs it.
When he most
Uh,
needs the watch.
but anyway, the blind man takes him back to a hallway that just has "Pay the Ghost" like scrawled all over it, which like he offers no explanation. It's just kind of like, well, this is here. This might interest you.
Yeah.
And of course, we get a nice little jump scare moment where, like, as Mike is staring at the wall, the ghost appears behind him for a flash, and
Mm-hmm.
we see it, but no one else does. And that just kind of sets Mike on this course. And of course, he tries to explain to Kristen, like, you know, I saw Charlie, like I followed him, and she's like, I don't believe this, I can't do this, and like storms out on him. But then later she sees Charlie's razor scooter riding around the house by itself,
Yeah.
and that's enough to be like, well, okay, I believe you now.
Yeah. Which he does also say to her at one point, like, I'm seeing Charlie everywhere. Like, you don't understand. And she's like, I also see Charlie everywhere. And she's like, metaphorically, asshole. And he's like, no, actually, bitch, pay attention. I'm
Yes.
seeing the ghost of our kid. Like, it's like, no, listen. And it's it's crazy, but I mean, he is actually doing this. She's just seeing this. And then everything starts kind of coming into, like we start learning about this, and they put two and two together. And he was like, it's a real fucking ghost. And they track it back using Hannah, his colleague at the college, who is I guess known for like history. I guess she's like a history person because she knows the history of New York or something.
Yeah, we don't really get a good like understanding of who she is. She's not a developed character at all. She's literally there to provide exposition for and congratulations to Mike. So she's kind of a pointless character. She's
Yeah,
basically she's his Google search essentially.
she literally is just there to be like, I need someone to give me this information. You will exist as a person to do that instead of insert
Mhm.
internet.
Which like she seems like she could actually be or have been a much better and like much more in-depth character, especially because we get the sense that like he relies on her fairly heavily, so
Right.
she's someone that's more important than he is at this college.
Yeah, or something. I don't know, man. But is she more important to the general story?
Sometimes I wonder if the people
Maybe.
listening can hear me make this face.
Well, everyone on YouTube sees it, but I'm very curious if the
Everyone
people that listen are like, that's weird. It's quiet right now. Your tension is audible.
But of course, they track down a parent of someone who lost a child 2 Halloweens ago, and they they go to the guy's house, and when no one answers, they just walk in because that's what you do. And the
Sure.
guy's there, kind of like strung out, presumably on heroin. We see drug paraphernalia kind of all around him, and he's got lesions and scabs and stuff like that all over his body, and he's kind of out of it. And they like try to ask him, like, we're here to ask about your daughter. He's like, just pay me, man, or just give me money,
Give
man.
me money, man.
And so like Mike takes out like a $50 bill and gives it to him. He's like, I gotta pay the ghost. And they're like, what?
Okay, so I want to talk about that because we learn we're gonna talk about what we learn pay the ghost actually means versus what this statement implies. So, and also it's very weird. So what we learn is that back in 1689, the story we heard in the beginning, there was this woman who was something of a pagan, let's say. She
She
was
was
celebrating
Celtic. She was part
Celtic.
of a very small group of Celts that came over from Ireland and settled in old New York when it was just kind of like a trading settlement. It hadn't really established as like a city yet. And there was an influenza outbreak, and the people blamed this small group of pagans, specifically this Annie, I think her name was Paquin,
Right.
Soquin. I was thinking of Anna Paquin.
Anna Paquin, which is so
And
funny
this
because we were
Anna Paquin.
rewatching True Blood again.
Of course you were.
Yeah.
And Annie Soquin
Yep.
and her 3 children. And so the people come for her with literal pitchforks and torches.
Yeah, which I also want to point out is super weird because Annie is played by two different people. So Annie Sockwin, who is the actual mother, is played by Lauren Beatty,
It's played by
and
Warren Beatty.
it's
He's
Dick
making a
Tracy.
comeback.
Yeah, Dick Tracy is coming back. But Ghost Annie is played by Kaylee Hunter, which is it's very weird. Um, very weird little like I don't know why, but
Which is
anyways,
funny because they look similar enough
right.
that like it can be pulled off. But like, I would love to hear the story of why Lauren in makeup wasn't as scary as Kaylee, or like wasn't available for those days to shoot or something.
Yeah, maybe it's like a stunt thing. I'm not sure. But anyways, so here's the whole thing about Pay the Ghost. So in this moment, this is before we learn about the Annie story. So this is just before we learn about the actual story. In this moment, when he hands this guy the money and the guy says, "Oh yeah, I have to pay the ghost," the implication is that the ghost is being paid off. Like you have to pay the ghost to get your kid back or to keep the ghost away. So the idea is either you're giving him money or you need the money to get a thing to give to the ghost, right? This is the inference here is that it's an exchange of something. Like I have to pay the ghost a ransom or a keep away or a protection or whatever it is. You're paying the ghost like actually. Then shortly after this, we learn the story of Annie Sockwin, and that the story is as you mentioned about she was celebrating. The people come and they decide that it was the witches and blah blah blah. So they burn her three children at the stake with her, and she's burned after them, and she's forced to watch. And basically, in her dying breath, she says a curse and says, "You will pay. You're all gonna pay." And then now every year on this Halloween, because that's when it was, the Halloween, is that she goes and basically uh, steals three children to kind of like, you killed my three kids. Now I'm going to take your three kids. Like you're paying me back for, or I'm paying you back for um, killing my children. So she takes three kids every year. Um, so the idea of that is that now we've learned that the pay the ghost is that you're paying them with your children. Like that's the payment, not the paying to get the children back or the paying to keep her away or the constant paying or of like a ransom or a fee or whatever it is. Like it's a very confusing pay the ghost message, but I love the idea of pay the ghost, but it's very confusing.
Well, and we learn later that there's a small group of like Irish descendants that gather every year at this one church in Lower Manhattan uh, to celebrate Samhain, the holiday that's spelled Samhain. It's Samhain, and the kids burn a doll as an offering of like protection to save themselves from being taken as payment by the ghost because somehow they know about this legend. But like,
Right.
the Mike and Kristen like come up to this festival and like start asking about it and like, oh yeah, we don't know anything. I'm just a school teacher. I don't know anything about that. Oh, you're talking about Annie. Yeah, we all know about her. She takes kids. They die.
Right. Well, and that was the craziest thing. She was like, "Look, man, I'm just a school teacher. We just do this for fun." And they're like, "No, tell us this." And she's like, well, back in 1689. And she's like, gives this very detailed explanation of like, well, you should have just asked. I am an expert in this very specific subject, but everything else, I don't know anything, man. It's very, very wild, very Nick Cage movie.
And then they learn that they have until midnight. The portal is opened, like starts opening a couple of days before Samhain, and at midnight on the day of Halloween, the portal closes forever, and only the kids who were taken the previous year can be gotten back, which is a very specific loophole for a ghost to have.
Very specific loophole.
Like you would think the ghost would have like some sort of better policy around like better return policy, I guess.
Right.
He has a 1 year return policy. Anything beyond that, I'm sorry. Like even with the receipt, I can't help you.
Sorry, sir. I'm sorry, sir. I know you have your receipt, sir, but it's one day past the return policy, sir.
I can get my manager, but she'll say exactly the same thing.
The same thing. Sir, please stop yelling, sir. Sir, thank you. um spectacular. Yeah, I mean, it's such a weird little loophole, like um for a ghost story. I don't know, dude, whatever. So at this point, he was like, oh, I gotta, where would I go to get this portal? And he's like, fucking bingo, the wall with all the shit that said pay the ghost, let's go. And so off he goes, to the wall. Well, actually, they're driving in a cab, and he's like, this is after they get this information, and the cab gets attacked by vultures in New York City, and he crashes. And so at this point, Kristen is like 100% bought in, and she was like, okay, you got to go save our son, like go, run. And so she distracts the EMTs. He bounces off, and he gets there, and we get back to our unhomed individual again, the blind man with dreads.
You missed the part where they're on speakerphone with Hannah, and she's giving him the full story of what happened with Annie. She's reading this from like this ancient text that she found, like this historical record.
The historical documents.
She's taking great care to, like, read through a magnifying glass and everything, and she's telling him this whole tale, and so we get the full historical exposition of the story of Anna Sokwen and her children and why they had to die and blah blah blah. And you just get a brief shot of the cab driver's face right before the vultures hit, but like right after the story's told, and he's just like, this is fucking weird.
You're like, cool, another weirdo fucking fair. Great.
Didn't sign up for this tonight.
Yeah, right. It's just like, yeah, so he gets all fucked up. Nick Cage runs out, and this is where we get the exchange with the watch and the flashlights that the blind guy has for some reason.
Why?
Right. And then the wall opens up, and there's a bridge, a metal, like catwalk type bridge, and Nick Cage, comes across, and he finally gets to the house, and he opens the door. Yeah. What about the house? We forgot about the camcorder thing.
We said we were going to come back to the camcorder. So Mike is sitting at the table after some of his experiences of seeing and hearing his son and whatnot. And he's
this is before Kristen and everybody. Like, this is before he learns the thing.
Yeah. And he's rewatching the footage, and he sees that what his son was seeing from that perspective, and he so of course he's going to see the ghost that Charlie captured with the camera as they were walking around. No, he literally stops the footage like seconds before Charlie turns and points the camera down that alley, and so we don't get a return to that at all. So there's no payoff whatsoever for Charlie having filmed that like there should have been. But he sets the camera down and like walks away to like make a drink or something like that. And it does what, of course, all cameras do, and starts kind of staticking and then like displaying a like night vision view of like an old cabin from the 1600s. And he walks over and picks it up and looking at it and like, what is this? Like, I don't remember recording this movie. And then of course there's a jump scare moment of like a creepy face with a like an old timey mask, and he's like, oh, and like, well,
because it shows the house, and then it zooms in into the door, and he sees a bunch of kids sitting around in masks at the thing, and then it's the jump, and he goes what? Yeah, Nick Cage. Yeah. But yeah, so that was the camcorder thing. So now he's in the corridor, he gets to the house, he goes inside, he sees two rocks sitting on top of like the under the boards thing that we saw in the beginning. He lifts them up, he goes under, and there's just a sea of children just standing blankly. They're very ghostly looking in their costumes, and he's shining the flashlight on them all, and he yells, Charlie, and a bunch of them raise their hands, which is really creepy, but it was really cool. But so he starts walking through, and he starts like, going to grab the hands of the children, and noticing that he's just going through them. And of course we get the scene that, once you watch the movie, you're like, oh yeah, this is about to happen. And he gets to the one, and Charlie's hand, grabs his hand, and he's like, oh, okay, we got to go. And then the two kids come up, which this was really weirdly worded. the other two kids come up, Mia and Pablo, who we learned earlier from instances with the NYPD PD officer who had went and was trying to like hunt down the pay the ghost thing. And we learned that these two other children were stolen at the same time as Charlie was from the same exact fair. And they're there too. And they were like, can we go with you? And he goes, there's no time. And at first I was like, motherfucker, are you going to leave these two kids here? I was like, what the fuck? But it was just really, he just was like,
Better
really
not.
They worded it. But so they all start going. They're like, all right, let's get the fuck out of here. And as they get to the corridor, they get back to the bridge thing. And of course, Annie is there, and she, him and her and Nick Cage have their little fight. But then we get a rescue from none other than the ghost children. So the ghost children fly in and they block Annie so that Nick Cage can, grab the remaining living kids and head off and get back home. And they do.
A second week in a row of someone miraculously hanging from a cliff by one hand.
Yeah. While holding a 40 to 50 pound child.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although in Harlock, it was he hung by literally 2 fingers.
Yeah.
And I was like, nobody's that strong.
I mean,
nobody.
He is though.
Nobody.
He's a space pirate.
Not even Logan or whatever the fuck his name was.
Right.
But yeah, so of course he gets the kids back. Now, mind you, there's already been a little bit of suspicion around Mike being like, he's the one that was with the kid when he went missing. And there's like the scene we briefly touched on during the content warning where Kristen kind of goes into a trance and she's like cutting this Celtic symbol into her arm. And then there's a couple other things that kind of cast some doubt on Mike in the eyes of the police. And I feel like him just showing up a year later with 3 kids probably doesn't help his case, especially because the kids, like, you would think, oh, well, they can back up his story. They can tell what happened to them. Like Charlie gets home and he's like, oh, my hat. I thought I lost this, and like doesn't remember a goddamn
He was like,
thing.
oh, he had so much fun at the fair, mommy. Like, it was great.
Kid lost a year of his life. Like someone's going to have to explain that to him. Like,
right. Well, he's missed an entire year of school and he's going to go back to school and be like, oh, I'm in 3rd grade now. And they're like, you're in 2nd grade again. Sorry. Because you missed an entire year of your life. He's going to be like, wait, what the fuck? Like, it was crazy. I mean, we did also miss, they called in a psychic medium, and the psychic medium gets burned. The entire inside of her body gets incinerated, but the outside remains intact. We talked about Hannah?
That's right. That's a thing that another thing that casts some doubt on Mike is, they call the police about this dead body in their house, and I'm like, I don't know, Mike, this is kind of suspicious. Bad things happen around you,
right?
And Kristen was like, you think that my husband had anything to do with this?
And he's like, yeah, actually,
yeah, I really do.
I just fucking said that.
But the cop, if you do too.
But the cop that we have, insert generic NYPD investigator, he was just so unnecessary in this movie. But he starts to investigate the side part of this, and that's where we learn about Mia and Pablo. That's where he sees like the thing being burned, like he gets attacked by a thing. I don't know, it was unnecessary, but it was more validation, I guess.
Another thing is like there's no payoff to him like being on the case. Like, he starts out as like, he clearly doesn't believe anything supernatural, and like he's tired, he's overworked, he's got a file this big of just the papers on Charlie and what's 20 times that on the computer. And like he's gruff, and he's like he's made no progress in a year, and then like suddenly decides to take Mike serious, and like goes investigating this claim of like the more missing kids not found on Halloween theory, and he talks to one parent about that, and then he talks to the coroner about the burned body. And that's it. He does nothing else.
We just don't see him again. Like, he's just so irrelevant.
Like, he starts to like put the pieces together and then just goes away.
Yeah. I don't know, dude. But yeah, so then there's that, and then Hannah, as we mentioned earlier, she gets blown out a window after she delivers the info. And actually, this is very interesting. So why is the psychic and Hannah killed?
Because
Right.
they got too close.
Yeah, but like
as I was
Mike and if they just kill Mike, like if the ghost just kills the parents, fucking story's over, man. Like nobody goes after her anymore.
And like the medium I can kind of see because like she opens herself up to it and then the ghost attacks and like that's kind of
whatever.
a fairly common plot point,
Yeah.
whatever. But as soon as Hannah like hangs up the phone with Mike and like closes her ancient tome and like goes to leave the illustrious library, like the first thought in my head was, "You researched me, and now you must die."
Right. Like,
you
why?
know my true name.
Yeah, it was just so dumb. But so they die. They get fucked up. Hannah gets blown out the window. The psychic medium gets cooked. But then our end credit scene. So this is a mid credit scene. Is we see Hannah and she's being eaten by the vultures as she was impaled by several things for some reason. I don't know.
She lands on a bunch of rebar, which
Yeah.
That's why you don't leave a bunch of exposed rebar outside your library building. First of all, it's ugly, and this building is gorgeous.
Right.
Second of all, it's a massive impalement hazard.
Right.
And maybe you don't think about impalement a lot, but I do.
It's one of Caleb's irrational fears.
It is literally one of my largest fears.
Yeah.
And you see something like that, and like,
that's just asking to be stuck up your body.
Like that's like someone's gonna land on that.
Right.
Someone's gonna land on that.
Yep.
And as the camera zooms in on her face, her eyes open, and they're all dark.
Wow. The end. And we'll never ever get a sequel. Why?
Because why would we?
Right. But I mean, like, why is she that? Like, there's no reason for her to be the ghost.
She forgot to pay the ghost.
She forgot to pay the ghost. This is her ghost lights got turned off.
Maybe she got inhabited by the ghost of one of the peasants who killed Annie, and she and Annie are going to battle for all eternity.
I mean, that's a fucking stretch, but all right, dude, we'll go with that. So should you watch this movie? Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, I mean,
it's Spooktober. It's Nicolas Cage. It's not the worst haunting movie out there. It's not the worst, like, help my son was kidnapped and no one will help me movie out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even the worst Nick Cage movie.
No.
Yeah, it definitely floats somewhere in the middle. Yeah, I mean, sure. You know what? I feel very indifferent about, like, this is not one of those movies where I'd be like, oh, dude, you got to go see that movie, or like, oh shit, don't watch that. I'm kind of like, honestly, I don't really care if you do or not. Like, I literally could care less. Couldn't care less if you did or not. Like, I just can't. I don't care.
If you're in the mood for a ghost movie, I mean, maybe watch this over the like dozens of generic haunted house.
Yeah, Ring, Grudge. Like, I mean, unless you want like super duper scare, like maybe, yeah, or like The Conjuring, or any of that bullshit. Like, you could watch this instead. Also, this is a very, like, compared to things like The Conjuring, this is also very light. Like, it's not as jump scare. It's more suspense than it is horror or ghost story. But I mean, in all fairness, the whole middle of the movie kind of drags, because the whole middle of the movie is just Nick Cage being like, "Where's my son?" For like fucking 40 minutes, and then eventually in the very tail end of the movie, he's like, all right, well, it's been a year. I'm just going to randomly do some research now. And like, motherfucker, what, like, I don't know. It was very weird. I don't know. Give it a watch. See what happens. Tell us what you thought about it. Tweet at us, or, send us a comment somewhere. We're down. So this movie is streaming for free on Tubi TV. Our friends over at tubitv.com. You can watch for free without any sign up whatsoever. You just type in tubitv.com and then pay the ghost and then watch the movie ad supported. Perfectly fine.
Yeah, you don't even have to pay the ghost.
Yeah, not at all. Yeah, the ghost, of course, being Fox Entertainment. That's who owns Tubi. Anyways, yeah. So cool. So we've got one more week left, right? We have one more left.
Yes.
And the what is this? The giant papier-mâché boulder of
This giant paper mache boulder is really heavy,
it was really heavy.
or is actually really heavy, or something like that.
What the fuck? I don't
So-
even know, but all right.
I mean, you know that we love a New Zealand film.
Oh
you know
yeah,
that you know that we love sci-fi.
of course.
You know that we love shitty B movies.
Mm-hmm.
This has it all.
Ah, yes.
This is
I'm
literally
very-
a New Zealand film about some guys that get trapped in a B sci-fi movie and have to fight out the plot and save the day.
Oh, I'm so excited. And then that wraps up Caleb's month, and then we move into my month. Very excited because then it's the month of my birth, and we're gonna kick that one off with a movie called They Call Me Bruce, which I'm very excited to watch. I think it's gonna be super funny. We got some other cool ones lined up for you guys as well. So yeah, happy birthday, Caleb. It was
Thank
your
you.
birthday tomorrow.
No, this movie comes out a week and a
Nope.
day.
So your birthday is in 1 week. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, my girlfriend's birthday is tomorrow from the day
Oh.
that this episode airs.
Happy birthday.
Yeah. So yeah, 1 week, and then you're the week after that. So cool. So join us next time. We appreciate you being here, and goodbye.